Supreme Darkness drastically changes the way Mermails should be played. Let's talk about it. To start the profile off, I have 3 copies of Poseidra, the Storming Atlantean. This new card is so powerful that you just want to build your deck around it. So whilst this is easily searchable off of either Dragoons or Abyss Rhine, just hard drawing this card makes cracking boards that much easier. And as we talk about the rest of the deck, you will see why I play 3 copies of this card. For the other Atlanteans, I play 3 copies of Dragoons. Still a powerful searcher in the Mermail deck, allowing you to grab any Sea Serpent. Then I of course play 3 copies of Shadow Squad. With the release of Poseidra, opening just Dragoons and Shadow Squad allows you to get to Neptubis, when previously this would not have been combo. Then I play 3 copies of Neptubis Prince, by far the strongest Atlantean printed, and the 1 copy of Heavy Infantry. For the Mermail part of the deck, I play 3 copies of Abyss Teus. I have slimmed down quite a bit on my Mermail part of the deck, but Teus is still a very good opener, as well as an extender. And with the release of Poseidra, this gives you another level 7 that you can make your rank 7 plays with. To go along with Teus, I play 3 copies of Abyss Rhine. In this version of the deck, she gets a bit less powerful, seeing as I'm not playing Coelacanth, and with Poseidra you have plenty of ways to trigger your Atlantean effects, but I still chose to play 3 copies of Rhine because it does get you to Poseidra, or the Teus if you already have access to it. And for the last Mermail monster, I play 1 copy of Abyss Pike. I'll touch later on why I'm not playing any copies of Megalo, Coelacanth, or Abyss Gundy in this deck, thus I choose to only play 1 copy of Pike. And for the utility waters, I play 1 copy of Mulinglacia, the Elemental Lord, and 1 copy of Minstrel. I wouldn't cut either of these, because they're very good when your opponent lets you start, and since these are both Sea Serpents, your Dragoons gets a lot more utility. For the spells, I play 1 copy of 1-for-1 to access the Neptubis from my deck, and 1 copy of Triena. I still play Triena and Mermail King, as it comes up law going second. When you anemone lock yourself, make a king and trigger an effect to get the Triena, and then Celantis away their board, and nothing gets returned to their field unless they're water monsters. And for my non-engine, I chose to go with a mix of hand traps and breakers, seeing as this is a blind second deck, and use Poseidra to crack through any of their fields, as I believe this card is just that broken. I decided to play 2 copies of Lightning Storm, mainly to clear away the back row, but also to hit cards like DD Hive King Wave Caesar, 3 copies of Book of Eclipse. Whilst Eclipse alone does not deal with the full Ryzeal board, seeing as they have twins, it helps to counteract some of what they're doing, as well as being a very good trap-ish when you go first. That's it for the breakers. For the hand traps, I chose to play 3 copies of Mulsharmi Fuvalos. As this is an OTK deck, I really want my opponent to pass as early as possible, so having these turn skips like the Fuvalos and Perulia, as well as some hand trap traps in the form of Imperm and Impulse, going along with your board breakers, allows you to have a pretty good game 1 against most decks, as you don't want to go the complete board breaker route, because then you play against something like Maliss, or perhaps if Ryzeal gets to make a Dweller, it can be quite rough for you. Additionally, I built this deck for locals or regional sized events, so people will know what you're playing after at least a few rounds. And if they see you're playing a go second deck, they'll probably just let you start. So having at least some of your non-engine in the form of the Eclipse, Imperm, and Impulse being effectively trap cards that you can use to disrupt your opponent when you go first, as opposed to Lightning Storm or the Mulsharmis, alleviates the damage done to you if they just randomly let you start in game 1. So now that you've seen the main deck and you understand a bit more about how the deck works and my theory behind it, we can talk about why I chose not to play Abyss Steam, Abyss Gundy, Abyss Megalo, and why I chose not to play Coelacanth or the additional 2 copies of Pike. So as this is a going second deck, I didn't feel that the Gundy nor the Steam would really come up, seeing as I'm not doing a combo as I would be if I was going first. Sure, searching the Gundy off of your place and then having an additional extender to push through a board comes up, but drawing the Gundy is quite bad, and seeing as I'm not playing 3 copies of Pike, because I'm not playing Coelacanth, thanks to the release of Poseidra, being a much better card you can get off of Rhine, at least when you go second, I could cut the additional normal summons from my deck and make sure that my hands weren't clogged with cards I had to normal summon to get utility out of them, thereby cutting the Gundy, seeing as I don't have much access to this card anymore, as it was mainly searchable off of Pike. I also want to OTK my opponent, hence why I'm not playing Dark Ruler no more in this deck, so Coelacanth allowing me to put up multiple Toads going first doesn't really come up that often. And whilst the Megalo is a good card to have when you want to push through a board in OTK, it is an additional card that just requires too many cards to function. Poseidra has a similar effect, being good into a board, but it's much more searchable, seeing as it is an Atlantean, so Neptubis can grab it from your deck, and not as costly. with the discard effect of Megalo. And then to talk a bit more about Abyss Steam, this card is very powerful if you play a going first strategy where you have a bunch of hand traps that you can draw into with Steam to disrupt their plays and have follow-up in the graveyard. I believe the Trite XYZ is good enough just being a monster reborn on summon, but if you were to play a going first strategy and you wanted to play a trap card to set off of her effect, I believe Steam is much better if you're playing hand traps than something like Abyss Sphere, neither of which are of course included in this deck, seeing as I'm playing a going second deck. And with that out of the way, we can talk about the extra deck. So for the first monster, I play one copy of Abyss Keeper. Whilst this card is mainly utilized to summon Coelacanth, if you happen to draw it, you can also summon Pike from your hand. Seeing as I'm playing 3 copies of both Teus and Ryan, Ryan gets the Teus and Teus gets the Pike. I have plenty of access to Pike in this deck, so if I have additional water bodies, I can just summon Abyss Keeper to bring out Pike from my hand. However, this might not come up often enough to justify the spot of Keeper, and instead you could play SP Little Knight or number 4 Stealth Kraken in place of it. Next I play one copy of Mermail Abyssalacia, one copy of Coral Anemone, one copy of Mermail King Neptabus, one copy of Marince's Bubble Reef. Still a very good card to make going first if they force you to start and you're able to make this to draw into additional cards in their turn. And then the one copy of Celantis. With Book of Eclipse, if you were to put a whole Ryzeal field face down, you can easily do the Anemone into Celantis play we talked about early in this video, and you don't have to deal with their face down monsters anymore. For the XYZ monsters, I played 2 copies of Totally Awesome to summon with the 2 copies of Bahamut Shark. This is by far still the best Water Exceed monster, even if you can't readily make 2 copies in one turn, and then the 1 copy of Abyss Dweller. Unfortunately, Ryzeal can pretty easily make the Abyss Dweller, so we have to side some additional hate cards to deal with the Dweller post side. But Dweller is a very good card against the Fiendsmith decks as well. If a Fiendsmith deck were to force me to start, I often make Dweller instead of the second Bahamut Shark if I can make both. Then the 1 copy of Trite. This is mainly just a way to overlay into Poseidra Abyss, but making this as opposed to Yugioh, when you were only gonna make this anyway, just allows you to get a free monster reborn. This is yet another reason to play this deck as a going second deck, seeing as Poseidra Abyss it helps you crack pretty much every field they can make. And for the last monster in the extra deck, I play 1 copy of Crocodragon. For the combo where if they make you start, then you can link this off and summon back a Minstrel to synchro into Croco, drawing additional cards and having more disruptions. For the side deck, I play 3 copies of Mulcharmy Meowls. I think Meowls is very good against the Maliss deck, but also against Fiendsmith variants, where you're able to not only stunt their plays, but also being able to use this if you were to draw it as a 6th card, or if you were to see 3 Mulcharmies. You can keep the Meowls in your hand and use it on Lacrima when they attempt to bring back the Requiem. I think this card is better than Lancia, particularly in this deck where I want to see multiple cards so I can break apart their board rather than floodgate them for a turn and go -1, because this card still shuts out Maliss from making all of their link-based plays, while also being more versatile into various meta decks, as well as Rogue. Then I side 1 copy of Atlantean Marksman. It is very good to have a searchable back removal card so you can easily deal with the back row against, for example, Labyrinth. Then to go along with the Lightning Storms in main deck, I have 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster as well in the side deck. Clearing away the back row so all of your cards resolve, you can go for Ode Decay, is very nice. Then I have 1 copy of Call by the Grave. It's just one of those cards you can put into a lot of matchups. If they let you go first, you can use it as a trap, or to stop their hand traps. And if you go second, you can use it for example on Requiem, or Hieratic Seal, just negating their effects. Then I have 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Again, some more back row hate and to deal with certain floodgates. Next I needed a card to beat opposing Abyss Dwellers, against Ryzeal mainly. Forbidden Chalice is not good enough because they can chain Detonator to pop this and dodge the Chalice, and Droplet is often too costly, just being a -1 to negate the Dweller. I found XYZ Encore to be a much better choice, seeing as most people play Fiendsmith Ryzeal right now, so you can even do this on the Caesar, and they cannot use it to negate it. You can also out the Dweller and make sure that they cannot make another one, because none of them play Plasma Hole. So this is just a good versatile breaker against that deck. Also, you can put back the Detonator, so their twins can't reborn it. And then I wanted a side deck card, which I can put in against certain combo decks where I don't want to go second against them, because they just end up doing too much, unless I open on Bulcharmy. But also a card that I can side in, punishing them if they elect me to go first, against the rogue decks, or the mid-range decks, whilst not being a completely only going first card. I think Solemn Strike fits that role perfectly. This is a very good trap card for when you go first, by stopping what they're doing, allowing you to survive another turn. But also Solemn Strike is a very good card when you go second and you Mulcharmy them. They pass on a mid-rangey board with lots of follow-up and maybe some non-engine, so you can't kill them. Then having the strike for their next turn is very powerful. I hope you guys found this video insightful. If you enjoy my content, make sure to also subscribe to my second channel, linked in the description box down below. There I'll be posting more personalized and exclusive content.